Welcome to the Deep Dive. We pull together the sources, the research, and the forgotten details to give you a distilled understanding of complex, fascinating topics.
And today, we are immersing ourselves in a narrative that is, well, truly one of a kind.
We're talking about the story of Joseph, or Yusuf, as told in Surah 12 of the Quran.
It really stands alone. When scholars, whether they're religious or secular, analyze global literature, this specific story, Surah Yusuf, is just consistently cited as a masterpiece.
And it has this incredible structural claim to fame, right?
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know the Quran's layout, this chapter is unique.
It is. All 111 verses are dedicated to a single story,
A single story.
told chronologically from the very beginning to the very end. It's the only one like it.
So much so that the text itself actually gives it a title.
It does, which is also unique. It calls it Ahsan al-Qisas.
The best of stories.
The best of stories. I mean, that's the mission we're on today. We want to go beyond just the plot points, the dream, the palace, and really understand why.
Why this story? Why was it revealed in 7th century Mecca? And what can it, teach us today about everything from economics to psychology?
Let's start right there with the context of why it was revealed, because that adds so much dramatic weight.
Okay, so why did Prophet Muhammad need to tell this specific, very detailed story at that exact moment?
Well, there were two main drivers. The first was external. It was a test.
A test from who?
The pagan leaders in Mecca, the Quraysh, they were prompted by local Jewish rabbis who knew this story inside and out.
Ah, okay.
And they basically challenged the prophet. They said, if you're for real, tell us the detailed history of how the Israelites moved from Canaan to Egypt.
A history that a 7th century Arab just wouldn't have known in that kind of detail.
Exactly. So narrating it completely and accurately was a powerful sign of its divine origin. It wasn't just local legend.
That makes sense. But you said there was a second reason.
There was, and it's maybe more profound, more internal. It was about consolation.
Consolation for what?
This surah came down during what's called the Emalhuz, the year of sorrow.
Right, after the death of his wife, Khadijah, and his uncle, Abu Talib.
He was at his absolute lowest point. Persecuted, isolated, grieving. And the story arrives.
So how does Joseph's story specifically offer comfort in that moment of, crushing loss?
Because Joseph's life is the ultimate template for vindication after suffering. He goes from a prophetic dream to being betrayed by his family, sold as a slave, thrown in prison.
Rock bottom.
The absolute bottom. And yet every single one of those awful steps was necessary to get him to a position of power. It was a divine promise, this rejection, this hardship. It's the prelude to your eventual triumph.
That context sets a very high bar. So let's place him historically. It feels like historians have really zeroed in on a specific period in Egypt.
They have. Most Egyptologists and historians anchor Joseph's life in what's known as the Middle Kingdom, or more likely the Second Intermediate Period.
And when was that, roughly?
We're talking around 1700 to 1600 BCE.
Okay, so why is that particular century so important for making the whole story plausible?
Two words. The Hyksos.
The Hyksos.
This is the key historical anchor. During that period, Lower Egypt wasn't ruled by native Egyptians. It was ruled by the Hyksos, who were Semitic or Asiatic rulers. The Egyptians even called them the Shepherd Kings.
So Joseph, being Hebrew, also a Semite, was actually ethnically closer to the people in charge.
Exactly. It completely changes the dynamic. It provides this incredible historical plausibility for a foreigner, a shepherd from Canaan no less, to rise to the rank of Al-Aziz.
The mighty official, like a prime minister.
Pretty much. Under the later purely native nationalistic Egyptian pharaohs, that would have been almost unthinkable. But under the Hyksos, it's not just possible, it's, likely.
That one detail makes the whole thing feel so much more grounded. But then there's the linguistic detail about the rulers' titles, which scholars often point to as the real smoking gun.
Yes, this is where the text gets astonishingly precise. Throughout the entire story of Joseph, the Quran refers to the ruler as al-Malik,
which just means the king, a general term. But centuries later, when the Quran tells the story of Moses, it calls the ruler
Pharaoh. Why is that distinction so critical?
Because modern Egyptology confirms it. The title Pharaoh, as the official customary term for the king, really became established in the New Kingdom. That's Moses' era. During the Hyksos period, Joseph's era, they used more general titles, like king.
So the Quran, a 7th century text, is using the correct historically specific title for a ruler in, say, 1650 BCE, and then correctly changes it for a ruler hundreds of years later.
It's an almost surgical accuracy. For anyone claiming the story was just borrowed, this detail is a huge problem. How could a 7th century Arab have known a linguistic nuance that was lost to history and only rediscovered by modern archaeology?
Incredible. Okay, but what about direct evidence? Critics will say, if he was so powerful, where are the statues? Where's the inscription that says Yusuf, son of Yaqub?
And that's a fair question. The answer, again, comes back to the Hyksos.
We do have indirect support, like finding huge, centralized grain silos from that period, which fits the famine story perfectly.
Right.
But the lack of a direct inscription, that's explained by the Hyksos purge theory.
Which is the idea that the later native Egyptian dynasties tried to erase the Hyksos from history.
Precisely. When the native Egyptians finally kicked the Hyksos out and started the glorious New Kingdom, they went on a campaign to destroy monuments, records, anything linked to those foreign rulers.
So if Joseph served the Hyksos king,
his records, his name, his monuments would have almost certainly been targeted and destroyed right along with theirs. In this very specific context, the absence of evidence actually becomes a form of supporting evidence.
Let's shift from the history to the moral and dramatic core of the story. It all seems to start with this one attribute: Joseph's legendary beauty.
The sources are all in agreement on this. The Islamic tradition, based on a hadith, says Joseph was given half of all beauty.
Half of all beauty, that's a lot.
It's a quality so overwhelming that it becomes a test in itself.
And the Quran gives us that unbelievable scene with the noblewomen.
Yes, where they are so astonished by his appearance, so completely distracted that they accidentally cut their own hands with the knives they were holding. They say he isn't human, he must be a noble angel.
That scene really cements his status, but it also sets up the central test, doesn't it?
It leads directly to it. The attempted seduction by the governor's wife, who tradition calls Zuleika.
And this isn't just about resisting temptation. It's about resisting temptation that's backed by an incredible abuse of power.
Absolutely. Joseph was a slave. He was property. He was completely dependent on his master and his master's wife for everything.
His refusal wasn't just about chastity. It was an act of profound moral courage against someone who could have him killed.
He risked everything: slavery, torture, death, just to maintain his integrity. And it cost him his freedom. He was thrown in prison on a false accusation.
But the story frames that time in prison not just as a punishment, but as something else.
It's a refining fire. It's where he learns patience, humility, and where he hones his ability to interpret dreams. He never becomes bitter. He keeps his character intact, which is the very thing that eventually gets him out.
And that whole journey from the well to slavery to prison, it's all leading to the story's climax, the part that everyone agrees is the peak.
Forgiveness.
His brothers, the same ones who threw him in a well to die, come to him decades later, begging for food.
And they don't recognize him. They are completely at his mercy, bowing before him. He has absolute power over their lives.
In that moment, I mean, the psychological weight of it.
It's immense, and he could have taken revenge. He could have shamed them, but he doesn't.
What does he say?
He reveals himself and immediately says, "No blame will there be upon you today. May Allah forgive you." He completely absolves them. His focus is immediately on reconciliation, on healing the family.
It's a model for restorative justice, not punitive justice.
It's why it's called the best of stories.
Okay, so we have to address the major critique. The story is very similar to the one in the biblical book of Genesis. So the academic argument, especially from 19th century Orientalists, is that the Quranic version is just borrowed.
A fair critique, and one that has to be considered. The Muslim scholarly response, though, is quite robust. They call it the criterion argument.
Meaning?
They don't deny the similarities. They say, of course they're similar. It's the same historical event from the same divine source.
So the similarities are seen as proof of a shared origin, not plagiarism.
Exactly. But the key to their argument is that the differences are proof of correction and perfection.
How so?
Well, like we discussed, the linguistic accuracy of king versus pharaoh is seen as a correction. The Quranic version also strips out a lot of the tribal genealogies and focuses like a laser on the core moral lessons: monotheism, patience, trusting God's plan. It's presented as a streamlined, perfected re-revelation.
And even if you set aside the theology, its literary structure is praised by everyone.
Oh, it's brilliant. Secular literary critics love it. It's perfectly symmetrical. It starts with a dream and the betrayal of his brothers.
And it ends with the fulfillment of that dream and the forgiveness of his brothers.
Every early tragedy is perfectly mirrored by a later triumph. It's just a masterpiece of storytelling, no matter how you look at it.
So let's pull that thread into modern life.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph is sometimes called the first great economic planner.
You could absolutely make that case. When he interprets the king's dream, 7 fat cows, 7 skinny cows, he doesn't just predict the future.
He provides a solution.
He provides a national policy, 7 years of boom followed by 7 years of bust. And his plan is essentially the first recorded instance of counter-cyclical fiscal policy.
Okay, break that down for us. It sounds very technical.
It's what modern governments try to do. When the economy is good, the 7 years of plenty, you don't just spend everything, you save aggressively, you build up reserves.
So that when the downturn comes,
The 7 years of famine, you use those reserves to keep society stable and to survive. He basically invented national-level disaster management and food security.
and there's that little scientific detail in his advice, isn't there?
Yeah.
About how to store the grain.
Yes. In verse 12.47, he tells them to leave the grain in its ear, meaning in its husk.
And modern agricultural science would say.
That's the best way to do it for long-term storage. Storing grain in the husk protects it from moisture, insects, and decay. It lasts years longer than threshed grain. It's another one of those startlingly specific, correct details.
So you have this amazing convergence of plausible history, deep moral lessons, and sophisticated governance that's still relevant.
And I think the ultimate takeaway from this best of stories is the certainty of the divine plan, the concept of tawakkul.
Trust in God's plan.
Right. The story demonstrates that suffering is not random or meaningless. Every single bad thing that happened to Joseph, the betrayal, the slavery, the prison sentence, was a necessary, painful, and indispensable step on the path to fulfilling his destiny.
It completely reframes how you look at adversity.
It allows you to see current hardship not as an endpoint, but as an essential phase of growth.
And that really brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. If Joseph's long, traumatic journey was necessary to achieve clarity and victory, what seemingly random setback or rejection or difficult period are you facing right now that might, in hindsight, be revealed as an indispensable step toward a greater future vindication?
It gives a real purpose to patience.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the story of Yusuf. We'll see you next time.